us to come together and create a new system or parts of a new system.
Like seeing the bullshit in the world and then seeing the bullshit in people around you and then going like, oh wait, yeah, it's here too. That's how we raise our children too. We can't tell them how to think or what to think. We can teach them and show them how we take care of ourselves, how we treat other people.
And every choice that each soul makes contributes to the whole human experience and, you know, this earth school that we're in. Even when you're in the fucking ground, 6 feet in the ground, if you're in a fucking box, you are still disconnected from the fucking earth. Put your body in the fucking soil. God.
We have so much information, understanding energy and consciousness, the trees, the mycelium, like it's all connected. We need to take care of each other. We each have our own gifts and time and energy that together, collectively, collaboratively, we're supporting the whole. Everything is perfect as it is right now, and so is the desire for more.
Okay. I kind of want everything to do organically, so I just wanted to bring up, I was kind of thinking, I didn't want to like say we're gonna talk about XYZ, but I was thinking in terms of like sensuality, the aspect of slowing down, and really the importance of like sisterhood and community, which is kind of based on what this podcast is about, is really just unity, coming home to yourself, connecting to people around you, like deepening relationships, and that includes in a relationship with yourself. And I know you and Meleah talk about the good girl box all the time and just breaking out of that and like really like learning your own authentic pace and like your authentic expression. And I guess how that really invokes that self-love and really like helps that naturally just like flourish and deepen. And then we get to carry that out into our relationships. That's kind of the energy that I wanted to talk about with you, because that's kind of what the things that I've seen that you share. And I know that you have personal experience with and applying to your own life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
So, yeah, let's start with sensuality. I feel like growing up, that word just sensual just kind of meant sexual or sexy in a way, or, you know, turn on, which I never really knew until recently. Like, turn on doesn't have to be sexual. Turn on can be like, I'm turned on for life. Like, I am fully alive in this moment. I am present. I am engaging in pleasure, like however that may look, you know? But what does sensuality mean to you?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that piece of it. It's funny, we've been doing the Sensually Alive workshops all across the country this year, and there's at least a handful of women I know who attend those workshops, or who attended those workshops, who were fully expecting the entire workshop to be about sexuality, you know? And that's okay, right? Because like, that's a valid point. You know, I think a lot of us as women grow up hearing the word sensual. Sorry, that was my cat. We grow up hearing the word sensual, and especially when it's, you know, connected to like what it means to be a woman, to be a sensual woman. A lot of times we associate that with sexuality. And we really see it as like, you know, I think they can be in relationship with each other, sexuality and sensuality. They can support each other, but I do feel they are their own individual expressions and practices. For me, sensuality has, honestly, this practice has taught me a lot this year, just through the way of teaching it, you know, and like I mentioned, Leah and I hosting these workshops, you know, every single workshop, I would take something away from what the women would share, or from, you know, the practices that we were leading. And just over, you know, the first 6 months of this year, I was like reflecting on how much this practice has taught me. And I would say, yeah, what it was to me at the beginning of the year versus now has shifted. It's different now. And now in this moment, it really feels like what I'm doing right now. I'm gazing out my window and I'm just orienting towards like the sunlight. Like it's almost like that golden hour glow on the trees and the leaves. And I recently put up a hummingbird feeder, so I see some hummingbirds now and then. watching my cats, I'm orienting towards my senses. I might smell, I can still like smell a subtle scent of sandalwood that I had on earlier today. I'm making self-contact, that sense of touch feels really comforting to me right now. So it's essentially just orienting towards our senses, what I can notice and take in through my senses in any given moment. And orienting towards what's good to me, like what you were saying about what it means to be turned on. I think through our sensuality, through our senses, we can be turned on by life, and it doesn't always have to mean sexually, right? It can just mean like, how much pleasure can I receive in this moment through my senses? And often that what it does is reminds us that it doesn't have to be always like the big orgasmic moment to be pleasure, right? Like we can find so much pleasure in, through our senses, which honestly is really often taken as just the mundane of life, right? Just like, I see the same thing every day when I look out my window, or like, I've seen my cat a million times, or I've smelled that smell a million times. But, it's like really the practice of dropping into presence. And when we do that, our senses become more alive, right? And it's also this very feminine practice of receiving, opening to receive the sense, the experience of the sense, opening to receive just the moment itself, right? So truly, I feel, and in that way, right, when we are learning to open and to receive, that can help us to then feel more sexual, right? But it does so many other things too. Like it helps us to, or me especially, what I've noticed is it helps me to feel more centered, grounded, regulated, calm, connected, present, available, right? So yeah, that's what
I
it's
feel
been.
like that opens up a space to really get into gratitude as well. Just being able to enjoy, whether it's enjoying like the warmth. I'm thinking about like just something as simple as tea, like whether you have it all the time or multiple times a day, just like enjoying like, oh, it feels warm against my fingers and I'm smelling these herbs, like, and you get that like joy. Not only does it increase all these different hormones and chemical reactions in your body, but like, yeah, it brings you more into the present moment, which is essentially what we're all seeking and trying to get to, not being caught up in the past or the future, but just here now and just really being grateful and enjoy with what is. That's my children. But
Love it.
yeah, I love that. So you talk about a practice. I'm not asking you to share exactly what you teach, but maybe like, what is some simple ways, like let's say someone's really having issues or doesn't even know where to start, like to tap into their sensuality or even just to get present, like how can we just learn how to just slow down, especially in just this busy world that is always asking so much of us, energy, attention, like my children at the door right now. But just everything's always just go, 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 here, 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 give me your attention. Like how can we just really slow down and like focus on ourselves and what's here and what's alive now?
Yeah, such a good question. Honestly, I feel like, what I just walked through or talk through as far as the practice of like looking out the window, that is absolutely something that I would recommend starting with, is just incorporating more of those moments throughout your day where you're switching out of autopilot and into just awareness and presence. And I think something that can be not helpful, not so helpful, is when we think that we have to like escape from our lives. I think that sensuality has this really beautiful way of actually connecting us much more deeply into our experience, like not only into our bodies, but also connected to the world around us, right? So I think that it's not so much like, this expectation of when I start living sensually alive, or when I'm a sensual woman, or when I'm, becoming this embodiment of like who I want to be, that all of a sudden my life has just, slowed down to this perfect pace. And, like everything is just picture perfect, right? Like that's not realistic. Life is always going to be stressful. Life is always going to involve things competing for our attention, right? Being a mother, like that's never going to change, right? Like your children are, always going to be in the picture, and like work, we're always, for the most part, going to have to work to support ourselves, and like drive a car and like be in traffic. Like these are things we can't really fully avoid being in a like modern society. And I think what sensuality teaches us is that it's much more about learning how to be more okay with what is, learning more how to be in the world rather than like wanting to escape from the world. That's what it's taught me, I feel like.
I love that. I feel like for a while I was in this like resistance, whether it was like toward modern day society and all the things that we have now or technology. It was like, no, I need to exit this and run away and just like go live in the woods by myself. But it's like, okay, you can enjoy your life that way, but like, you're not even connecting to the world. You're not contributing really. So like, what's the point? And I guess like some people, they could do that and they'd be okay. But like for me, it's like, no, I really want to make an impact and I want to be present and I want to learn how to integrate these kind of practices, these ancient really practices of honoring the feminine and find this balance and be able to hold both,
Yes, hold both. I love that. Yeah, and that's, I think, so true. Like it's so tempting, right? We're all tempted to like run away and live off grid, and some of us do it, and not to say that you or I won't be one of those people. Maybe we will, but I do feel like it's can sometimes be something that actually prevents us from feeling more connected to our lives, more connected to our, the world around us, the people in our lives, right? So yeah, I think it's important that we're more so looking for ways to connect more deeply in rather than looking for something like out there, like looking for something to run to. It's, I think, much more about being with what is, and not feeling the need to change it, right? Because I think, a lot of times it's like, oh, I'd be happy if this were my reality, or like when this happens, then I'll be happy, or this, when I'm doing this, then I'll be living my dream life, or, et cetera, et cetera. And sensuality is really this practice of gratitude, like you put it, it is a practice of like, wow, look how beautiful life already is, right? And there's no need to change anything. It's already perfect.
Yeah. I love that. I was actually, I don't know if you know who Tosh Sultana is, but we just went go see her, and man, I have never been to like, I guess, a jam band concert before. And this moment towards the end, she took a 5 to 8 minute song and drug it out for like 20 minutes. And like, we just got so lost in the moment. But like that to me, she was in such a flow state and we were like in it with her. Ooh. And I was just, it brought me so much presence, and like it almost made me like think to myself like, man, I've got to find me something to get me in flow state, because this is phenomenal. Like she's just so in it in the moment. It was so beautiful, just every little thing, and just dragging it out. And it wasn't like, oh my God, is this going to end? It's like, this could go on forever, and I'm just in this trance of beauty. And to me, like that kind of presence of just enjoying, not rushing or pushing or pulling, just like being and soaking it all in. It was, oh my God, it was so beautiful to witness.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I love the flow state, which is, I think what we're all looking for, which is truly just more presence, right? And I think that's what sensuality also does, is it builds our capacity to be more present, right? Especially like to your point, in a world where there's so many distractions, and our attention can start to feel really, really small. I know for me, my attention span, being an ADHD neurodivergent, I definitely struggle with my attention span. And I feel like sensuality has truly helped me to expand the amount of presence that I can hold at any given moment, and where I choose to direct my presence.
Yeah. I've also find like getting your nervous system in a state where it can be still and be calm and be quiet. I'm like, I have found even just in motherhood, like I don't have this sense of like reacting immediately super fast or like trying to like stop something. I'm just like, like my kid could be screaming at me like, ah, I'm like, all right, hey, you know, and yeah, I know you guys talk about that, like regulating your nervous system. All of these things are tying in so beautifully, but are there any specific practices? I know you kind of work with the body and with somatic breath work and body work, right? They kind of are related.
Yeah. So that's actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's actually another interesting thing about sensuality and somatics, or sensuality and the body and our nervous system, is they share this, what I've realized is they share this relationship with each other, where, you know, we teach the way to experience more sensuality, to feel more sensual, more sensually alive, is through a regulated nervous system. Because when we're regulated, our nervous system is, like you were describing it, open, available for connection, present, grounded, and that this creates safety in the body. And when we, especially as women, feel more safe, we feel more available to open and receive and take in and experience pleasure, right? So what's where the relationship with the two come in is, if we want to become more sensual, we need a regulated nervous system. And to regulate our nervous systems, we can actually practice sensuality. Sensuality, the more I taught it, or taught these workshops with my sister this year, the more I realized this is truly just a practice of creating more safety in the body. You know, it's truly a practice of coming home to your body. It's a practice of feeling safe enough to be present and to be still, right? Because like being still sometimes feels a little edgy. It feels a little uncomfortable if you're really used to this kind of pace of life, which is really, you know, extremely fast paced, right? And so when we do start to slow down, because we might say that all day long, like, oh, I wish I could just slow down. Like, I wish I could just take a break. But like when we do, we're like, oh, this feels weird. I should be doing something. I should be productive, right? And so sensuality again is this practice of helping us to feel more at ease in the stillness, in the slowness, right? And so that it's just this beautiful like relationship that is like woven together, where like the more you practice the more that you're practicing sensuality, the more that you're regulating your nervous system. And the more regulated of a nervous system you have, the more available you are to more sensuality. So yeah, I think like truly embodiment is just a practice of inhabiting the body, right? And so Leah and I, my sister and I, are trauma-informed practitioners. And, you know, the lens that we look at our work through is about really taking care of not moving too quickly when it comes to inhabiting the body, right? So especially for women, like most of us have some kind of trauma that's been stored in the body. And it's important that when you start to touch those pieces of you that still have that trauma that hasn't been fully integrated, that you understand like how to support yourself through that, right? So that's really, how we design and lead our workshops and retreats and programs, is through that lens of, how can we create more safety in the body so that we have more capacity to feel. Because if we jump straight into like, let's go straight into like feeling all the orgasmic pleasure as possible, along the way, other things are going to be activated and triggered, right? And so if we're not taking the steps to look at how we can support ourselves when that happens first, then yeah, we can end up causing more harm than good when we have good intentions of like, I want to heal and I want to feel more and I want to process and express my emotions. But there's definitely a very valid importance for doing this work with some kind of trauma-informed training, because it's just very the body is so complex, right? And like every person experiences life differently. So it's really just about learning these tools that can help you to support yourself, right? Because that's really what we want you to walk away with at the end of the day, is not so much us coming in and giving you some magical breath work or like claiming to be like someone who's going to heal you, but it's really about giving that power back into your hands, right? Like you taking on that ownership of self-healing, right? So yeah, it's about learning the tools that you can practice yourself to support yourself through the challenging moments, so that you have greater capacity to feel the full spectrum of the human experience, right? Because that's something that's really cool that happens is, on our way to feeling more of like the good emotions, we're also expanding our capacity to feel the challenging emotions, right? And I think I said the word good emotions, and I say that with like quotes around it, because I really don't think there's such thing as good or bad emotions, but maybe the emotions that are like more fun and exciting to feel,
Pleasureful. I don't know.
more pleasurable to feel than the other emotions. But also, one more layer to this is that I have experienced that the more you build your capacity and you are starting to feel more of, both ends of the spectrum, our relationship to the emotions on the like challenging end of the spectrum change, and we no longer see like sadness or grief or anger as these bad experiences or feelings. Our relationship to them changes, and we now can look at them as like, oh well, anger is actually really sacred, right? Or like grief is something that's so tender, like how can we be with these emotions in a way in which they're calling us to be, rather than like just fixing them or like shoving them down or like processing them as quickly as possible so that we can like move on to something else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like even so, learning how to hold both at the same time. Like I remember seeing someone, I think this is the first time someone like I know expressed this like openly, and there was this like terrible, I think it was like a shooting or something that had just happened really close to home. And that same night she was going to celebrate one of her like best friend's parties. And she was like just sharing how I can both be completely devastated and sad for this event while also being able to be fully present and enjoy and bliss for my friend and her birthday. And like I just got chills saying that, but like the capacity to be present with both without having to block one or the other,
Totally. That's powerful. That's it, right? Because that's when you are really tapping into what it means to be human, right? Like our emotions are not a problem, especially as women. Our emotions are not a problem. They're actually this beautiful gift, right? That we get to experience.
You said rage is sacred, and I love that you and Leah always talk about the good girl box, and I just want to bring that up, and like breaking out of the good girl box and becoming the wild woman, as I like to call it. And like, how does sacred rage like tie into that? Like, what does that look like?
That's a good question. Yeah, I feel like the good girl box, let's start there, because I feel like you and I, like, we know what the good girl box is, but just in case anyone who's listening doesn't know, what we mean by this is essentially this box that society tends to create for women.
But I don't know if I was just using too much of the battery while it was plugged in. So I just like turned off, but I think it's okay. I hope so.
We're back. That's good. That's a good sign.
Okay, anyways, that would be a good halfway point.
Perfect. Should I could just start over from what I was saying.
Like the good girl. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, let's start with just defining what that means to be in a good girl box. I think the easiest way to explain it is just imagine if you're a woman or like resonate or identify as a woman, just reflecting on what your experience has been like this far, as far as like what society expects of you, like, you know, beauty standards or like personality and the workplace, like how women are supposed to be, right? Like we're supposed to be kind, polite, sweet, quiet, obedient, you know, not too much, right? Like we don't want to be too sexualized, but at the same time we're like objectified, right? Our bodies and the way that we look. And you know, the worst thing you can ever say to a woman is to either insult the way she looks or to insult you know, something about her being a mother, right? Like those are like the two lowest blows that women can get. And so it's just essentially that's what the good girl box feels like, is having to live within all of these ridiculous confinement that you know, they're like labels and identities and expectations that we have grown up absorbing as women.
And it seems to change every decade.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It's always changing, right? And you know, of course there has been so much. I say all of that and it sounds like really negative and it's like it sucks to be a woman, but you know, we know that's not true. Like we know what it truly means to be a woman, and we have plenty of like incredible examples out there for us as far as like women paving the way, and just the women that we know in our lives, like our mothers and our best friends, just being total badasses. But this is essentially, the good girl box comes from like social conditioning and just growing up in a culture where it feels impossible to be like the perfect woman because there's all these ridiculous expectations put on us. And so, yeah, to break out of this good girl box is essentially learning how to be okay with not being liked, you know, learning how to really just like throw the rule box out the window, right? It's like you're not even like creating your own rules. It's just like, fuck the rules, you know? It's about learning how to like understand what it means to actually be a woman. I think there's like so much that we have to unlearn and then relearn, and you know, whether it's like teaching ourselves or through someone else showing us the way. But yeah, it's like really so much of what society tells us is like a problem about us, like, you know, we're too sexual, or we're too caring, we're you know, not assertive enough,
Too emotional,
like,
your expressions too
emotional,
loud.
yeah, too emotional, too much, right? Hysterical, right? Like we're bad with money, like we're shopaholics, like whatever. So all these things you know, like are truly our gifts, right? So like our intuition, our emotions, this natural like caretaker energy. We literally, you know, create life, give life to this world. There's all these, you know, these truths that are hidden under the lies that are fed to us, right? So it's really about reclaiming everything that society has told you what's wrong with women, you know. And like our sexuality, for example, is a really empowering place to start, because I think that's one of the biggest lies that's fed to us around, like, you know, our sexuality is bad, it's dirty. Sorry, that's my neighbor. I live in the backyard of this really amazing lady in a little cottage, and she was just walking by my window and she was like, "Are you still working?" I'm like, "Yeah." Not really, but yes. So anyways, yeah, it's really more so about reclaiming for yourself what it means to be a woman and to basically ditch the rule book, right? And so that's easier said than done, right? Because there's a reason why we as women become people pleasers. There's a reason why you know, we experience some of the things that we do, like these challenges that hold us back. And it's because, you know, we've experienced a lot of violence, and we've experienced a lot of hatred. And so, you know, it can be deeply, deeply scary to start to do these things where, like, well, you know what I just said, like, fuck the rules, or like, who cares what people think? Like, that can be really terrifying. That can feel really threatening to us, right? Because we have like this embodied memory that's been passed
Cellular
down to
memory.
us.
Yeah.
Exactly, cellular memory of what has happened in the past when we, you know, used our voice, or when we, you know, communicated boundaries or expressed ourselves in a certain way. So of course, you know, some of that is inherited, and so it's not necessarily, you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's trying to keep us safe, but you get to be the one like, okay, I know where this is coming from, but I'm going to choose to do this scary thing anyways, because, you know, I don't think in this moment it is actually life threatening. It feels life threatening, but it's not, right? And so again, we can take that trauma informed approach to something like this, right? Where it's like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So, you know, just taking like baby steps in your life to look at, you know, where am I living in a way in which I'm only showing up like that because I think it's what I'm supposed to be doing, like whether it's to please a partner or to please someone at work or to please your family, right? And just taking, you know, starting to take inventory of where you're doing that in your life, looking at why, and then, you know, from there it's about changing your choices, changing your behavior, changing your relationship to those things. And it all is in baby steps, right? Like, you know, no one's expecting you to to change overnight, right? That's not realistic. And so that's what the meaning behind slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Because it's not about this overnight transformation, it's or like overnight liberation. Like it was last year that we did the liberated woman. And so, you know, I think it was a 4 maybe 4 or 5 hour workshop, and one of them was a half-day retreat. And even then, you know, even after half a day, you're not fully liberated, right? Like that doesn't just happen in a matter of hours. You start to scratch the surface of like, oh, you know, that was something that came up, and like, you know, how can I look at that, and how can I work with that, right? And it's really this, I think, lifelong commitment to not like letting yourself be confined within this good girl box for the rest of your life, right? It's a lifelong commitment to choosing something else, you know, something that's true for you.
It's making me think of just like reflecting. If I was thinking in my head, how would someone know if they're doing something based off of, you know, if what others are expecting of them, or something that's like authentic for them? And I just think about how it feels in the body. It
Yes,
makes me think of
exactly.
Trevor Hall, like in and through the
Yes.
body. I love that. It's so true. But like that's really our compass, you know, whether it's our womb or just feeling into our body. But like I feel like for me at least, I feel like every person can be a little different depending on location and the quality of the feeling. But for me, like constriction is like where I know that that's not for me. And where I feel like free and just like open, that's when I know like that's my authentic pace, you know?
Yes. Yes, I love that. As you were asking that question, like that was what was coming to mind. Even that song was coming to mind.
I love that.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, but I love that. And you know, even that is a practice too. Like someone who's maybe new to this work, like may not know what a yes and no feels like in their body, may not know what constriction or openness feels like in their body yet. So even that is a practice of you know, learning the language of the body, and that I feel is truly also a lifelong practice, right? It's just like this healing work, right? It's never a destination that we reach. It's never like we are fully healed for the rest of my life. I'm healed, I'm good, you know. It doesn't really work that way. It's this lifelong and maybe even infinite journey of trying to understand what it means to be alive.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Can we discuss the impact that sisterhood and this community, Sisters That Stray community, like how has that transformed your life? I know you and Leah, y'all kind of like lived separate and then traveled together around the world, and then you finally came back home and really started to build this community. And I love talking about how like we can't ever do it on our own, and it's nice to have like best friends and partners, but like really sisterhood and just a space where people can witness you, they can hold you, they can celebrate you, they can just so, you know, yeah, I just want to talk about how important that is and how that's really like, what have you noticed has that brought to your life, or even for the people and Sisters That Stray that have had transformations from that experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think I see a lot of women who come into our workshops or retreats or even the online programs for the first time. And, often what Leah and I will acknowledge is it's okay to feel a little uncomfortable in a room full of women right now. Not all of us have grown up with really healthy female friendships. So that can be really triggering for women who have had bad experiences with, just not having healthy female friendships, with no like examples to look to or their own personal experience with it. So, I think what these types of gatherings do is to help women really see each other in this way that they desire to be seen. And they do it so like easily for each other. And it's funny how we often just come into a space and think that like no one else is going to do that for us. But then we're surprised that they do, right? It's kind of like this the paradox of vulnerability, where it's like the biggest thing that we fear, but it's often the key to everything that we want more of, right? And so like in our relationships, like intimacy is often something we truly crave more of. Yet vulnerability is the way to experience more of that. And that's often what we are most afraid of and what we'll avoid, right? Because, it's fair, like maybe you've been hurt before in the past, or it feels very exposing, right? It does feel scary. But it is, yeah, it's one of my favorite things to witness in these gatherings and these events that we host is just the potency of the vulnerability in the space. And, sometimes it takes a little while for some of the women to really get to that place where they can be vulnerable. And even if they don't really practice it fully, or they don't really like speak up or share anything in their first gathering, they were able to witness other women doing that and seeing, oh, it was safe for them, so now I know it's safe for me too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just truly beautiful. I mean, I know that you have incredible female friendships in your life, and I see you sharing about that, and just how beautiful it is to share friendship with women, like women connecting with other women. It feels sometimes like this just like rebellious thing that we can do because, again, think about like society, like the way that they are always like pitching women against each other, like comparison and jealousy and competition. And, truly though, like women are just so not like that. We're so like, again, like we have that like natural caretaker where we're lovers, where, like this bond that we have with each other is so beautiful. And so, experiencing it and witnessing it firsthand, especially in person, is just one of the most beautiful things of my life. Truly, I mean, that sounds kind of corny, but it's really true. I mean, I think at the end of my life, that will be one of the things I'm most proud of, is just the way that we've been able to create spaces where women have had the opportunity to come together and connect in this way. For Leah and I, that was at the very heart of the intention of why we started doing what we did, because we felt this really special bond between the two of us as sisters, and we knew that that was special. We knew that not everyone has a sister, or not everyone has a great relationship with their sister, but it felt almost as if we had been given this beautiful blessing. and we wanted to share that with other women, right? And so that was really what sparked this vision, was just the relationship that the two of us had. And we, I've, being a big sister and having a sister that I've been so close to, throughout my whole life, except for the first 18 months that she was born, it has given me so much. It's in those moments of I feel scared to do this alone, or in those moments of when you're going through heartbreak and you just like need someone to hold you while you cry, or like traveling the world together, starting a business together, like doing all these things that, like, I think back now and I'm like, would I have done that if I didn't have a sister by my side supporting me and doing it with me? So that's truly what I see as the power of female friendship. It's transformative. It gives us strength when we don't believe in ourselves, or the confidence when we don't believe in ourselves. And it gives us an opportunity to practice not having all our shit together all the time. We really, as women, we have a hard time letting go of perfectionism, right? We want to be everything, all the things to everyone all the time. But when we step into a space like this, we can just let all of that go. We don't have to be, responsible for anyone but ourselves in that moment. And to feel that support from other women when you do that, when you're able to like just lay all those things down and at the same time feel so supported just for being yourself, just for being there, it really gives us this embodied experience that we can then take with us into our everyday lives, right? It kind of gives us that like experience of, okay, like it's okay if I'm not like totally perfect today, or if I make a mistake today, it's going to be okay. If I cry to my partner, it's going to be okay, right? It gives us permission almost to be a little bit more messy in our everyday lives.
Yeah, I just think about too the way like men can love great. My husband has loved me so well that it has healed me in some ways. But to be a woman and to receive that love and nurturing care from another woman is so powerful. And it's like giving it back to yourself, and it feels so great. And also think these relationships, like for at least for my personal experience, like even just the relationship with my husband and the work that he had done before he came into my life, and the way he was able to hold me and love me, like helped me to love myself even more. And it almost instigated my own like self-love to like deepen, because he was loving me at this capacity, and like of course I can't love myself, that like I can't receive it until I love myself at that same capacity. So I feel like that's also what these connections and relationships get to do for us.
I love that. That I see that happening for sure. And in these circles of women, it is so beautiful, like exactly how you put it, where these bonds are formed, and there's nothing like the way a sister loves you, right? And so just like you're saying, like truly your heart has to grow. It has to grow to accept all of the love that's there for you. It's so important. And just the same for men too. Like men need strong male friendships in their lives, right? Like there's nothing like a male bond, right? So it's so important, but it can be hard to find, right? If you don't have a community like this to reach out to and connect with, in our everyday lives, it's kind of hard to like just find incredible female friendships like this. So yeah, I think it's definitely important that if you are listening and you're a woman who feels like she doesn't have some of those female friends in her life right now that are like feel like sisters, look for something that you can start connecting to. And like I think that looking for like things like Leah and I do, or a yoga studio, or you know, whatever it is, but finding something where you feel like you'll meet other people that are on a similar path as you. So maybe it's like, you know, maybe you're not into breath work or embodiment, that's fine. Maybe you're into like gardening, maybe you're into biking. You know, I think it's about going out and looking for those friendships sometimes, right? Like looking for them in the right places. But just remembering, like, it can be easy, so easy to isolate too, but like, please, 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 you know, if you feel yourself getting to that point, like, that's your cue to start reaching out to a community, you know, because it's like you were saying, it's life isn't meant to be done alone, right? Like, we're meant to live in community, we're meant to be you know, supported in that way. And so again, for women, it can be so easy to be like, I'm everything for everyone, but like, but what about you? You know, at the end of the day, you deserve to be supported too.
Mm-hmm. Think about one of my friends who is right now, she is being everything for everyone. She's like the kids, the husband, the school, the job, the house, like everything. And she's a military brat or military wife. So she's always like, you know, uprooting and like moving somewhere new. And that's definitely something that really helps her, is finding that community, whether it's like through the church or through her work or through like
Yeah.
other military moms. But like I can see the shifts whenever she starts building and deepening those friendships and spends more time around those other moms. She starts stabilizing out and or
Yeah.
stabilizing and just doing a lot better. And like
Yeah.
we just need that support. We need that community, that village to help us and be like, yeah, I know. Even and sometimes too, it's not even about like fixing problems. It's just about someone saying, like, yeah, I feel that. Like I go through the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, I'm not alone. Okay, cool. Like I can do this, you know?
100%. Yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest takeaway that most women leave with when they attend one of our events, is like just that reassurance, that simple reassurance that they're not alone and they're not the only one that's felt that way or experienced that thing, right? It's not even so much this like profound thing that Leah or I said, or like, you know, even like the, you know, the peak of their experience and the practices. It's just walking away feeling like I'm not alone, you know, I'm not alone out here. And that's, yeah, as humans, we're hardwired for connection. We're wired, like literally designed for connection. So yeah, it's something that I think we just need to remind ourselves of. It's human nature to desire that community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. I think
Do we
if
feel complete?
anyone, yeah, if anyone's interested in attending any of these workshops, I know y'all are kind of starting to do them a little bit more across the country. Y'all are growing and expanding. What events do you guys have planned so far coming up soon?
Yeah, good question. For the rest of the year, we'll probably be staying local, actually.
Okay.
We did a lot of traveling the first half of the year. This second half of the year will be mostly in the Pensacola, Florida area. So if you're in that area, definitely reach out to us over Instagram at sisters that stray. You can also check out our website, sistersthatstray.com. But Instagram is usually the best way to see what we're up to and what events we have coming up next. So if you're in that area, definitely reach out to us. We also have an online version of our community, and that's always available, always open. So again, just check us out on Instagram, and yeah, you can get plugged in that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and having this beautiful conversation. I can't wait
Thank
to
you.
have you back.
Yeah, I can't wait to be back. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.